Hey, this is Nicolosi, and in this video I'm excited to showcase what's new in Mela 6.9. It was supposed to be a relatively small update because I was away on a holiday, but things got out of hand and this update is packed with new features. And the changelog is quite long, so I'm not going to highlight everything. I'll try to keep this concise, but for the full details, check out the release notes. Okay, I'm running Mela on my macOS. It's a standalone app. This time we don't need to use a host. And a quick reminder, you can use Mela on your iPad or iPhone. Features are the same on all three platforms. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention is that the core concept chapter has been significantly improved with unified signal definitions and a detailed explanation of signal flow. I highly recommend all Mela users review this chapter because I'll be using this terminology everywhere going forward. Okay, let's start with a blank preset, and I'm going to insert an instrument lane, and then I'll insert a VA oscillator, and I'll also insert a volume module and set it to -12 dB to keep levels under control. Now, oscillator modules got few enhancements in this update. The most important one being the level parameters now default to 0. This removes an element of surprise, especially for the new users, because when you used to insert an oscillator module, it would start generating sound straight away. And a lot of users found this surprising. So now what you have to do, you just have to turn up the level if you want to hear the oscillator or modulate it. Okay, let's mute it for a second. Okay, now let's talk about the new Pitch Oscilloscope module. This is a very useful module, and what it does is that it uses a pitch signal and no tone events to lock onto the waveform. And so if I set this to, say, I don't know, let's set it to 90 degrees here, and let's trigger it again. And we see the waveform here, and we can change the level, and we can change sync. We can even change the waveform. So as I mentioned, it uses pitch signal information. So what we can do is we can insert a pitch processor, say relative pitch, and if I set it to a 1 octave lower, Pitch Oscilloscope assumes that the frequency of the waveform to be displayed is 1 octave lower. That's why we're seeing the waveform repeated twice. Now, if there's a mismatch, it will not display, it won't be able to lock onto the waveform. So if I set this to, say, minus anything, any other value, it's not able to lock onto the waveform. Again, I can set it to -24, so this 2 octaves lower. So now we're seeing the waveform 4 times. Okay, so that's Pitch Oscilloscope. It's very useful because when you have a complex chain, you might want to visualize what the waveform looks like. Okay, let's discuss the enhancements made to the Rectifier module. It's a very useful module. I recommend you check out a preset called RM sidechain. It's a very interesting sidechain effect, and it makes use of the Rectifier module. Okay, let's quickly look at what these parameters do. So with the Rectifier parameter, you can get half wave rectification, as well as full wave rectification, as well as anything in between. And then now it supports negative values. So it's even more useful now. DC offset as before just adds a DC to the signal. And there's a new gate parameter. So let's reset the other parameters and let's see what the gate does. So as I increase, what's happening here is that gate acts like a threshold. So around 70% here, everything below that gets reset to 0. So if I go to 100%, signal will eventually disappear. And now, let's see what this sounds like. Let's reset it to 0 and... So as I said, Rectifier is a pretty cool utility and also can be used as an interesting sound effect. For example, try it on drums, see what you get. Okay, let's discuss the feature I'm most excited about, and that's phase distortion module. The phase distortion module uses classic phase distortion technique to reshape any waveform. But it's not an oscillator. It just uses pitch signal and no tone events to lock onto waveforms, just like Pitch Oscilloscope. So what it does is that it works in real time. And let's retrigger our sinusoid. And let me increase skew to make it more obvious. So as you can see, it stretches the first half of the waveform and speeds up the second. And the phase is also represented with this line here. Let's hear what this sounds like. Classic phase distortion introduces a lot of aliasing, and it's part of its character. But you can reduce aliasing if desired using the curve parameter. It will smooth out the transition point. Another thing to mention is that the sound of phase distortion is highly dependent on initial phase of the waveform. If we take an upside down cosine, and let's retrigger our sound, what's good about this one is that you can create a pulse as well as sawtooth waveform. Obviously not exactly, but you can emulate sawtooth waveform using classic phase distortion. And let me demonstrate. The cool thing about this module is that you can apply it to any sound. So let's take a sawtooth and put it through a VA filter, and let's hear what this sounds like. Another thing we can do is that we can change pitch information before it gets to phase distortion module. So we can use relative pitch module to lower pitch by an octave. Let's hear what this sounds like. I think phase distortion module is great. I had a lot of fun playing around with it, and you can apply it to any audio. You can just take drums, for example, put it through phase distortion, and all you have to do is provide pitch signal information, and you can use fixed pitch, for example, and you'll get interesting textures. Okay, that's all for now. Like and share if you found this useful. Don't forget to leave a review on the App Store. For any questions or feedback, leave a comment below. See you next time.